The Indianapolis Colts must name Anthony Richardson the starting quarterback tomorrow. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you all for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. It's your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Hello, everyone. My name is Zach Hicks, your resident film nerd of HorseshoeHuddle.com, and I'm joined, as always, by Jake Arthur, our credentialed boots on the ground for the site. Thank you again for making us your first listen today. We're playing a really dangerous game of recording when we're in waiting mode for potential quarterback news. We know the insiders could come in and steal our moment at any second here, so we do appreciate you guys tuning in to us live here on YouTube, and then obviously later on with recording. If anything happens while we're recording, please let us know, and you'll get our live reactions to it here on the show. But today we have a full packed show for you guys. We're going to talk all about the quarterback decision. We're going to each go through what we think makes sense for the Colts and make our case for who the Colts should start out the gate this season. Then we're going to talk about the news in the secondary that included Xavien Howard being signed and Hunter Wohler being placed on season-ending injured reserve, which is a big blow to this defense. And then we're going to dive into the camp battles, talk about where they ended up, what happened with them, and how much injuries played a part into it, because we can't really have any of these conversations without injuries right now. But Jake, let's talk about the quarterback dilemma here. The Colts have been riding this thing all summer. They've been rotating the quarterbacks day after day. The two preseason games, we saw one quarterback start each game. It seems like the Colts have enough information to make their decision on who they're going to start, and Shane Steichen's going to speak to the media tomorrow, presumably to give all of us notion of who they end up on starting. So, Jake, make your case. Who do you think should be named the starting quarterback? We're not going to speculate here on what we think happens, but who do you think should be after everything you've seen this offseason?
Yeah, so I will correct myself from earlier in the summer. I think it should be Anthony Richardson. Initially, I did not anticipate this kind of a summer from Anthony. Very skittish about the injuries. You assumed it was probably going to happen again just because this is a guy where it's kind of always something. I didn't really anticipate with those injuries, with the expected injuries, for him to kind of smooth out some of the issues we'd seen, but I don't know what else Anthony could have done this summer to prove that, he didn't blow Daniel Jones away by any means, but if we kind of always said if it was relatively close, that you kind of have to give the edge to Anthony. He has proven that he is the one that's going to make the bigger plays. Now, he may not be as cerebral and recognize as many things as Jones does pre-snap and what defenses are doing, but that goes into the development of it all. They said themselves that he needs more snaps in order to kind of get that catalog. And if his play is just as good, if not a little better or more productive than Jones, then why would he not do it? And if we were led to believe this is a 50-50 battle, may the best man win. Well, we've seen pretty clearly that one of these guys is going to be able to help the team a lot more. And kind of something I've really thought about, especially since Saturday with the most recent preseason game. I was like, this team is going to need to get bailed out of plenty of moments throughout the year. This is not like a great roster. They're not a roster where you can plop a Brad Johnson or a Trent Dilfer or whatever in there and it is successful. This team is going to need a hero at times. And as much as Richardson can kind of get them in a hole, he's also the only one of the two that can dig them out of it. So I'm on board with thinking Richardson should be the guy.
Yeah, I'm in full agreement there. We were pretty pessimistic coming into training camp, and just because it was another injury heading into camp, and if there were any thoughts about him being held out of training camp, then that would have put him behind the 8 ball, and we could have seen him pressing, and it would have led to more issues. So we were pretty pessimistic coming to camp, but he participated in just about every camp day. I think outside of the day after his pinky injury, he was out there for every camp practice, looked pretty good by your account, Jake, and a lot of these practices. A couple low moments here and there, but again, the expectation with Anthony Richardson isn't for him to be this 70% passer because of what you get in the deep passing game, because of what you get in the rushing game from him. He's such an explosive playmaker that And Anthony Richardson completing 58 to 60% of his passes is probably better than a game manager completing 65% of their passes, And so I think that you got to swing for the fences to start a season. I just don't know if there's anything that can really make a fan base like just so like nihilistic towards how a season's going to go if you come out the gate saying like, yeah, Anthony Richardson, we just saw him have a pretty good preseason game. We've seen him have some pretty good camp practices. We're going to go with the option, though, that is just kind of safe for our team. And I think the thing with Daniel Jones, too, is you're always going to have him. He'll be there on the back burner. If Richardson just spirals like he did last season in the middle of the year and just starts stacking poor performances, you always have that safe thing behind you, relatively safe thing behind you that you can just throw out there and really call it there. But I think if you essentially throw the towel to start the season on the more flashy and the more upside pick and go with the safe option, you're kind of signifying to the rest of your fan base that like we're trying to squeak into the playoffs maybe here. We're not trying to go boom or bust. We're not trying to go for the option that could put us over the top. I don't know how it's going to go if they start Anthony Richardson because again, it's such a volatile experience with him. It could be really high. It could be really low, some really bad moments, some really good moments. But I do know that this is the swing for the fences. And I think that's how you have to start a season, especially when he didn't have an awful camp. Like if he clearly didn't put the work in this offseason and had a camp, I don't even want to say a camp like last year, but like a preseason performance, for instance, like he did against the Cincinnati Bengals last year, where he just looked overwhelmed by the Bengals' backup defense, then I could understand going to a Daniel Jones here. But by all accounts, he had a pretty good offseason outside of one gaffe against the Ravens and a couple of red zone moments in practice. Like he had a relatively good offseason. And then we saw in the game on Saturday that like, yes, both these quarterbacks have the ability to move the ball up and down the field, but only one of these two guys can make those big flash plays when backed up 3rd and 8+. I mean, we saw Anthony Richardson scramble for a first down for a 10-yard gain on 3rd and 10. We saw him deliver the throw of the preseason to Anthony Gould that was called back, unfortunately. I just don't think you get that upside with Daniel Jones. So if it were me, I just don't think I could settle for the perfectly fine of Daniel Jones out the gate. Now, again, if Richardson implodes in the first 4 games and you go 0-4 or 1-3 and it's just looking awful, then you have Daniel Jones to put him in there. But I think if you're starting the season with Daniel Jones, you need production immediately and you need wins out the gate, or you're going to have your fan base just completely turn on you.
Yeah, and they've been making moves throughout the offseason that indicate they plan on winning games. You don't sign Charvarius Ward and Cam Bynum and now Xavien Howard if you're not planning to be relatively successful this year, And Daniel Jones, according to them, can be fine and, do this and that. But for me, when I say that I think Anthony should win it, most of that is because of Anthony, but a good chunk of that is Daniel himself. Like, I don't think he showed this summer that, like, he would be this safe guy that'll give you a nice baseline every week. Like, he'd probably be fine. Like, he wouldn't be a disaster. He's probably not going to turn the ball over 4, 5, 6 times in a game. But, like, there were just things I saw where, he targeted Tyler Warren 3 times, I think, on Saturday. 2 of those were hospital balls, and that included the big play down the left side. And then the other one, he missed him wide open down the right side. Like, he's just not this, like, guaranteed layup player that has been kind of doled out to us. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think if they go with Jones that he's just going to guarantee them wins or being competitive all the time. I think Anthony at least gives them a shot at being competitive most weeks. And you did say we're not going to speculate, but like I've seen this a lot on Twitter and stuff. So like on behalf of the Colts beat, a lot of us are kind of, saying we would go with Anthony, but there's a decent chance the Colts may see it differently, or Shane Steichen may see it differently. And this is kind of further after Jim Bob Cooter spoke today. The things they have said they covet in the starting quarterback, the consistency and the mastery of all the small things, getting guys on the same page, being able to read things pre and post snap, all that. The way they describe that player that they want, they use a lot of the same language when they talk about Daniel Jones.
Right.
And while we all still think Anthony should be the better option, they may think that they have more of a sure thing, someone they know what they can do with Jones. And that's kind of the reason for the speculation.
Yeah, you know what? Maybe we should drag this into the second segment, Jake, because we do need to get to our second segment. So we know what we'll do. We'll push the Xavien Howard and Hunter Wohler stuff to segment 3, and we'll get on roster battles later this week. Because I think coming up, guys, we're going to talk about what the Colts ultimately do at this quarterback decision. And we'll go back and forth a little bit where, yes, a lot of the beat guys are thinking that this could be Daniel Jones, but I kind of have a different take on how I've interpreted Shane Steichen's recent comments and Jim Bob Cooter's recent comments. So, we'll talk about that a little bit more in segment 2 here coming up in just a second.
This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. These days, it feels like there's advice for everything. Cold plunges, gratitude journals, screen detoxes. But how do you know what actually works for you? With so much information online about mental health and wellness, it can be overwhelming to figure out what's true and what'll actually help. That's where talking to a licensed therapist through BetterHelp can make all the difference for you. You get real personalized guidance instead of just guessing based on something you saw on social media. Plus, having a trusted professional to talk things through with can actually help cut through the noise and keep you focused on what matters most. With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, serving more than 5 million people. It's easy to fit into your schedule. Just click to connect, and you can even switch therapists anytime if you want to, because as much as getting stuff off your chest and just talking out is important, having the right person to bounce all that off is just as important, to be honest with you. So talk it out with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off of their first month at BetterHelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. All right, Zach, so let's continue this here. So just to kind of regroup through all of this, we both think after what we saw in training camp in the preseason that Anthony Richardson is the logical choice to make. We don't, it's not a foregone conclusion that the Colts make that choice as well. Kind of the language Shane Steichen and even Jim Bob Cooter have used kind of, from my vantage point and those on the Colts beat, kind of indicates that could be Daniel Jones that they see. However, you said you have kind of a different view on that.
Yeah, I think for me, when my understanding of Shane Steichen over the last couple of years, maybe not being the boots on the ground like you guys, but just from my understanding of him, is he does like to muddy the waters a lot when it comes to the media. So when he has decisions to make, he does have a certain way to talk about things. But also a lot of stuff is kind of hidden in what he says because he really likes to just cover up everything that he doesn't like giving anything to the media whatsoever. But the way that I kind of have interpreted his last couple comments about the quarterback decision is more so in the framing of, I think everyone expects it to be Anthony Richardson. And it's more so like not talking down on Daniel Jones, being like, we also like a quarterback who can get the ball out and move the offense and do the little things. And do these. I think it's kind of just preparing Daniel Jones and people who support Daniel Jones like, hey, look, we still like Daniel Jones. It's just we're going to go with the upside guy and Anthony Richardson. That is kind of the way I've interpreted it. And even if we want to take Shane Steichen's words at face value, didn't he say in a press conference a couple of days ago, I think, or last week, even talking about Anthony Richardson, he said how Richardson's been getting a lot better at the small things, and he has been showing the ability to grow as a leader and take the small things. And that was where he saw big time growth from Richardson this offseason. So we can either take this one of two ways. One is being at face value, where if we take all of Shane Steichen's comments and words to heart, meaning that he's speaking truthfully, I still think Richardson could be in play when we're talking about the underneath stuff and the little things with the quarterback, because those are specific things that Shane Steichen has praised about Richardson this offseason. And then even if we're reading between the lines, I do think it's kind of like a soft landing for Daniel Jones, where it's like, look, we know this guy's got to play games for us this year. We can just get that out of the way too here, Jake. Whoever is named the starting quarterback is not going to start all 17 games for the Colts this season. And it might not be because of performance. Neither of these guys have shown the ability to stay healthy through 17 games really in the NFL. So I think we're going to see both these guys on the field at some point this season. So you don't want to just leave one of them dejected. So to me, the way I've interpreted Shane Steichen's, and people can disagree all they want, this is just my personal interpretation, is it's kind of like a soft landing for Daniel Jones, where it's like, look, we're going to go with the high upside guy here, but like we do value quarterbacks who do these certain things. We do value Daniel Jones, but Richardson has shown enough progress in those areas to where we're going to roll with him. That I don't know. Maybe I'm going to be proven completely wrong. I hope I'm not. I hope it's Anthony Richardson, but that's the way I've interpreted those Shane Steichen comments.
I would also now they've had a full offseason with Daniel, but I would also feel like they would be more inclined to go with the guy they know inside and out with Anthony, because this whole thing kind of bit them last year with Flacco. So they like Flacco from his comeback player of the year season with the Browns. They bring him in. They're like, oh, okay, this is like a really great insurance policy for Anthony. Anthony is a disaster to start. They pull him, bench him, and they assume Joe Flacco is going to give them some kind of spark that he did with the Browns as well. And again, Flacco took a lot of snaps last summer. Like they thought they had Flacco pretty well figured out. And he was not that great. Like games he started, he was not that great. He was not the guy they thought they were getting. And then they're like, oh my God, like, okay, like Anthony has done enough behind the scenes to say he's earned this thing back. So it almost to me feels like, and you mentioned this earlier, go with Anthony off the jump. Like you have seen these positive changes that he's made behind the scenes, off the field, and you've seen them kind of paying dividends, at least on the practice field. And his preseason wasn't really a disaster either. Like he left way early in the first game, but he didn't, he didn't look overwhelmed early on, I guess you could say, for how small of a sample size that was. But yeah, go to Anthony. And if for some reason things like just totally take a nosedive, you do have this guy in Daniel Jones. And to some extent, I've got to imagine Anthony thinks, as long as I've improved and done all the right things, this is my job still. Like, not that it's owed to him, but like, how else would it have been sold to him? You know what I mean? Like, show these improvements, do the things we want to see from you, and this is your job. Whereas with Jones, there's no way he should have felt guaranteed the job coming in here. Yeah. So if we're talking about maintaining whatever mental edge each guy has, that's also probably the best way to do it. Now, you're not going to make your decision if you're Steichen based off that alone, but like, go with Anthony, right off the bat and ride that out, see how it goes. I mean, if Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen are being given another chance to write this thing before things could all hit the wall next offseason, Anthony probably deserves that as well. And then, like you said, you have Jones to go to if it's week 9, week 12, whatever, and you're a game below 500 and you feel like you need to change something to get you into the playoffs, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think also part of Shane Steichen's comments that a lot of the beat reporters keep referencing here, saying that this could lead to Jones. I think part of it's also just holding Anthony Richardson to that standard. Again, just me reading too much between the lines, but I think it's just holding Richardson to that standard where it's like, we value quarterbacks who can do the little things, who can do what is typical of a quarterback in terms of leading the film room, in terms of moving the offense up and down the field, in terms of hitting the short stuff and taking the layups when they're there. I think it's just holding him to that standard to where, like, even if we do name you the starting quarterback, if you are not doing these things, we have another guy who can do these, at least in their opinion. So I think, again, part of it, maybe just me reading too much into it. I've gone back and forth when I've been seeing a lot of the beat guys really saying that they think it's going to be Daniel Jones. Part of me just thinks that this is them trying to hold Richardson to a standard because they didn't, like you said, Jake, they didn't really do that much last year. Last year, it was Flacco's coming in here to be the backup. The only semblance we got of a competition was when Kirk Herbstreit mentioned it in like preseason week 2, saying the Colts could go to Flacco if this Richardson thing isn't working out this year. But aside from that, it was like, you're our guy. Don't worry. Go out there and do your thing and just improve. Now we're holding you to a standard that you have to meet. And if you don't hit it, we have this guy behind you that we like. We like to run a fairly similar offense to you. So, yeah, I think a lot of it's smoke and mirrors. I think a lot of it is just trying to keep the waters muddied and keep Richardson just on edge and at the top of his game, because we've seen that the pressure this offseason has pushed him to a better training camp than what you've ever seen, according to you and a lot of these beat guys. So I think a lot of it is just like, hey, even if we name him the starter, he needs to be doing well in these areas, or we will go to Daniel Jones. So I think part of it's just keeping that pressure on him.
I agree with that. And I do want to be clear that, like, although there is some pushback and like some of us on the beat think it could be Jones, I'm not going to say we think it will be. I think most of us see that it should be Anthony, and it's kind of like wait a minute, there's a very good chance still that it's Daniel, not to say that it will be, but I still very much see an avenue where Shane could be on board with Daniel. And again, I mean, Daniel's not been like the healthiest guy in the league, but he might just want a guy who there's not going to be something different injury-wise every other week too. We can't really know. I mean, if Shane does announce it tomorrow, we surely will have a million questions for him, regardless of what the choice is.
Yeah, we'll have the full breakdown tomorrow if that is what tomorrow's press conference is about. Again, we're hoping on this show that's going to be Anthony Richardson. We think it should be Anthony Richardson, but to your point, Jake, I'm not ruling Daniel Jones out by any means. I could totally see a world where they go with Daniel Jones. It's just a world where I would kind of disagree with that decision to start a season, and it would put a lot of pressure on this team to like start fast, win out the gate. And what have we seen from this Colts team in the last 15 years? They don't really start fast. They don't really win out the gate. So we'll see exactly what can become of this team, regardless of who the quarterback decision is. But coming up, guys, we are going to transition away from quarterback for at least one segment on today's show. Jake handled that curveball. I threw at him pretty well. We're going to talk about the defensive backs. We're going to talk about some signings, some transactions, and the loss of a very important key rookie, another very important key rookie before the season even started.
This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of the year. NFL kickoff is almost here, and that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before. This year, Zach and I, Alan and Derek over at Colt Squad as well, we're all playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or it's your millionth league. We've all had, I would imagine we all have leagues we've been in forever. My home league, we've been playing Yahoo, and we're actually doing something really cool this year. We're doing our draft. We always do it in person. We're doing it on pontoon boats this year. So if you got some cool sort of fantasy draft plans or whatever, drop them in the comments. We want to hear about them. Yahoo's got good things to celebrate as well. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, they're dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. To kick it off, they just dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues. It's a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team each week gets eliminated until there's just one team standing. We've all had those games where he scores 60, 65 points, even though we have a stacked team. Well, tough. You're out in that instance. With the season around the corner, now is the time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. If you're more into the classics, you could still play head-to-head private leagues or join a public league with a bunch of randoms. We've all done it. But just stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. All right, Zach. So it's been a busy news day for the Colts. So we talked about the quarterback stuff. There's no news there, but we all kind of anticipate this quarterback decision is coming tomorrow morning. But, it started out with a name that people have been calling for a couple years now, finally landing here. Xavien Howard, former Miami Dolphins, 2-time All-Pro, 4-time Pro Bowler. The Colts were in grave danger of trotting you and me out at cornerback pretty soon.
I don't think they were in that grave of danger, Jake. That would be awful.
I've been in contract talks. They've seen what I could do in practice.
Okay.
But no, they finally bring in Xavien Howard to replace Justin Wally, Jalen Jones, Juju Brents, Kenny Moore. Now Kenny Moore's in the nickel, but you get it. Like there's
Jonathan Edwards as well. They're all hurt.
Exactly.
Everyone's
concussion.
Hurt.
I forgot about that one. Concussion the other night. So yeah, there's been a laundry list of issues at cornerback. So they signed Xavien Howard. They also grabbed a couple UDFA linebackers, Jake Chaney and Joseph Vaughn. But the saddest news is that they have placed our king, Hunter Wohler, on injured reserve and ending his season. Same thing with Blake Freeland, but we all knew that as soon as we saw that replay. And then Jacob Phillips as well, another linebacker who maybe wasn't going to make it, but might have been on the practice squad as one of the kind of veteran additions there. But this is tough. So let's start first, Zach, with the Xavien Howard signing. How do you feel about it? And then if you want to transition to the old Hunter Wohler deal, that's not the first one that we've had to pour one out for this summer and probably won't be the last, but this one's tough.
Yeah, my heart is already broken from Justin Wally. I don't have a heart left anymore to be upset about Hunter Wohler, but I am pretty bummed about that one. But starting with Xavien Howard, it's interesting on paper. Like, I'm sure this was one that Lou Anarumo was saying, like, look, I need to get a veteran in the room. I just don't have anything at corner. And I coached this guy almost 10 years ago at this point, but coached this guy before, know what he can do. He's had production in the NFL. And I think, if anyone's expecting Xavien Howard to come in and be all pro Xavien Howard, I think we're going to be a little upset come regular season, because he's just not going to be that guy. He hasn't played in over a season. He had some injury issues. He's a 32-year-old corner. And typically when corners hit that like 30 plus age season, and they're already not super fast guys, like Xavien Howard was a 4.58 guy back in the combine as in his draft year. I don't think we can really have the expectation he's going to come in and be a star, but I think you can grade him somewhere on the Brandon Faison to Xavier Rhodes type of scale in terms of veteran free agent that just knows the system. And I think he's going to fall somewhere in between that. Like, I don't expect him to hit the highs that Xavier Rhodes hit here in Indy, but he'll probably be like a Faison-ish level player, which is like good enough to be a replaceable starter that knows the system, can make some plays on the ball. And that's fine. I mean, as of right now, the Colts just had nothing at corner. They needed somebody there at corner. Now, the concerning part of this, and we're not going to go too much into it just because we're not specifically involved, but the off-field stuff with Xavien Howard is certainly a little concerning. So I'm hoping the Colts did their due diligence there. Chris Ballard did address that in a comment to The Athletic, and James Boyd put that out there. So I appreciate the due diligence there from Boyd to really check with the Colts on that. But yeah, Howard, I think he can be middling floor, low ceiling type of player for you, which again, the Colts are trotting out there, me and Jake. This is better than putting me and Jake on the field. So they needed some kind of bodies at corner. I'm fine with just getting a guy in here who just knows the system and knows the coach. And yeah, I think it'll be okay. I don't think it's going to be like, again, a game-changing move. There's a reason he's available in the middle of August, but just getting in somebody that's above the level of a undrafted free agent at this point is something,
Yeah, and that meter, of course, stretches from Antonio Cromartie on the low end to Stephon Gilmore at the high end. You hope there's somewhere around the middle with Xavier Rhodes, like you mentioned. But no, this move is fine for me. I think honestly it's a good one, and to me it's an indicator that, again, like I mentioned at the top, they do plan on having some success this year, which I mean is good. You sign a guy like that because you don't want to have to rely on Samuel Womack and Alex Johnson and stuff to fill in the gaps until Jones and Brents are back. So to me, this is a move to be taken somewhat seriously. Now, on the other hand, he is 32 years old. He hasn't played since 2023. And in those last 2 seasons in Miami, he missed like 6 games combined. So like you mentioned, kind of had some injury issues there. But I mean, at his peak, this was one of the best ball hawks in the NFL. And that's what Lou Anarumo said today. I asked him, I was like, this guy's a little older, hasn't played since 2023. What are you getting at him? And he's like, well, I mean, the reason he got drafted so high is because he knows how to go get the ball, which is true. I mean, he has seasons with 4, 5, 7, and 10 interceptions. I think he was like 3rd in Defensive Player of the Year voting that one year because he had 10 in that year. But yeah, I mean, he's been a very good player, one of the most handsomely paid players at quarterback in his prime. I don't think they're going to be getting prime Xavien Rhodes, but hopefully they get at least an average level corner who has awesome ball skills. I mean, I've seen him intercept the Colts multiple times. Like the guy can make really tough grabs. And I mean, if that's what he's able to give them without getting burned constantly, then I'm cool with that. Like if he works his way into the starting lineup without having to get yanked from it, I'm cool.
Was Xavien Howard the corner in that infamous like Andrew Luck final minute of the like second quarter experience where like each team threw like 2 picks in the final minute?
I think so.
I think he got Howard both of those picks.
Yeah, I think Howard had a game where he had 2 picks against the Colts at Lucas Oil. That's probably what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, I think it was that one where like it was like a 6-play span where Luck threw 2 picks to Howard, and whoever the Dolphins quarterback was threw 2 picks back to the Colts. It was complete mess. But yeah, Xavien Howard certainly has had some success in Lucas Oil in his career. Let's also talk about Hunter Wohler, though, real quick, Jake, before we get out of here. Just devastating news for the Colts secondary that's already just been dealt so many awful news, so much awful news. I mean, currently Justin Wally and Wohler out for the year. Nick Cross and Kenny Moore II, two veterans they were going to rely on, are both not practicing due to injury. Jalen Jones and Juju Brents, we have no clue how long those guys are going to be out. Xavien Howard news probably means Jalen Jones is going to be on IR and on cut down. That's just what I'm guessing here. So yeah, Hunter Wohler is just another blow to the secondary that we were so high on coming into the offseason, but now we're looking at Daniel Jones being the backup strong safety, Jonathan Edwards maybe being the fourth outside corner, third outside corner to start the season, Alex Johnson and Chris Lamons being in there as well. Like, this cornerback room, the safety rooms are just devastated by injuries right now, and the season hasn't even started. So they have 2.5 weeks to get healthy because everyone's banged up. And unfortunately for guys like Wohler and Wally, like, their season's already over.
Yeah, so I think right now, until Nick Cross gets back, the strong safety might be Daniel Scott.
They'll probably put Thomas in for it, I'm guessing, at this point. Because that's what they did when Wohler left the game. They put Thomas in there as the other safety, and they had him and Bynum kind of rotating back and forth. But if
they think they can cover what's in the box, okay. But I mean, I hope, regardless, I hope Nick Cross isn't out too much longer.
Yeah. I mean, Daniel Scott had a nice interception. It just didn't get pulled back the other day.
Isn't that gut-wrenching? It's like, the guy's been doing enough. Give him the pick. It's ridiculous.
There were like 20 plays on Saturday where I was like, can you just let it go? Like, chill, refs. Like,
yeah.
But yeah, it's unfortunate with this Colts defense right now. I think they have a lot of good ingredients. I think the front seven is in a pretty decent place when healthy. The back end has a lot of talent, and I think Lou Anarumo is going to be an upgrade on defensive coach. It's just everyone's hurt, so we'll have to monitor the situation going into week 1. And if guys like Cross and Kenny and Jalen Jones are all out for week 1, that Miami team is going to be tough to stop for this Colts defense. But as long as these guys can get healthy before week 1, all this overreaction and fear will feel like nothing. So all eyes are on week 1 with this Colts defense, but another major blow, just losing Hunter Wohler for the entire season. Mm-hmm. Certainly a devastating one here to Jake on this show, because Jake has been a Hunter Wohler guy since day one, and it's just been brutal to see.
Can't have nice things.
Can't have nice things. I lost Wally, you lost Wohler. We're both just going to be crying for the rest of the offseason here. But to end on that sad note here, we do want to thank you guys for making Locked On Colts your first listen today and every day. Next listen, NFL Fantasy Draft season is here. So again, for your second listen, go find Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast with hosts Vinny Iyer and Michelle Majuk. I hope I said that right, Michelle. Listen every day to prep for your fantasy draft to become most informed manager, so you can take home your league's trophy this season. Find Locked On Fantasy Football on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. You guys want to become a Locked On Colts insider and chat with us directly and get that insider scoop, follow the link in our show notes. And if you don't already, make sure you're following at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, and at Zach Hicks 2, all on socials. Also subscribe to us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. We love your guys' ratings, reviews as well. And we'll catch you guys whenever this Colts quarterback news breaks. So that could be tonight at midnight, or that could be tomorrow after the press conference with Shane Steichen. But we'll catch you guys next here after that quarterback news breaks.